welcome to Out and About on the Recumbents. Let's go. Ride low. Ride recumbent.
Passing on your left, thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Passing on your left. One more behind me. Have a good day. Howdy. Thank you. Hey, good afternoon. BJ and Joe Hondo, out and about on the recumbents. Hope you enjoyed that little musical interlude. And yeah, we're just getting in a short ride today. The weather, as you can see, is could rain any second, literally. So far, we've been lucky, and it's been mostly what they call virga, which means that it's raining in the upper atmosphere, but the lower atmosphere is too dry for it to actually hit the ground. And yeah, so we're just doing our our short loop, the Vincent bridge loop, and yeah, right now we're on the North Nevada frontage road trail. And like I said, you can see it's a lot of clouds, but it was sunny earlier. I was kind of hoping maybe, we get some breaks here and there, but I got a feeling it'll be pretty cloudy for the rest of the day. Now there's Pinnacle Rock, or Pinnacle Peak, whatever they call it. I want to call it Pinnacle Rock because it's not really a peak. And yeah, and I know this looks like a sidewalk, but technically it's part of the path. They do have a bike lane out there, but the road has a lot of traffic, so we just as soon take the sidewalk. And most of the time there's nobody here, so got my wireless mic hooked in, so I'm hoping that it's actually working. All the lights are on, so that's good. A couple of Groms. It's a little small Honda. I think it's like a 125cc, but it's like a big mini bike. Yeah, I wanted to show you the pretty part of the trail first. This is just ye old Harley Davidson here, Pikes Peak Harley Davidson, and we'll go by. That's I-25 out there. Well, they got a lot of trikes out there today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the freewheelers, which is their least expensive model. It's funny. They probably cost about $35,000 just to start, for their least expensive trike model, three-wheeler. But, not too long back, $35,000 seemed like an outrageous amount of money. But, if you go buy a top-of-the-line trike and you get, top-of-the-line e-assist and, top-of-the-line accessories, on a recumbent trike, shoot, you're looking at $15,000 now, 12 to 15. So, I don't know, maybe $35,000 for a motorized trike really isn't so far-fetched anymore. Now, of course, it is for our budget. We couldn't even afford the, a really high-end full suspension recumbent trike. Much rather a moto trike. Of course, a moto trike you can get by payments, which recumbent trike you can't. Okay. boost me up here a little bit. Up, bump. Oh, ow. Got a big incline going up. Yeah, I apologize if you can't hear me very well. Yeah, there's no real scenic, part of this, so we'll just do it the hard way. Got a driveway here, gotta make sure nobody's coming. Uh-oh. I don't think that Harley's running. Yeah, he's coasting. That's not good. Trying to get it to the dealership, I guess. Hopefully we don't have any problem. Because I will tell you, even a Harley Sportster like that one is no fun to push. But yeah, there's really nothing, no super scenic about this ride. But I thought I'd still go ahead and make a video because it's going to get really ugly weather-wise starting tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's the worst day. It's supposed to come in by tonight, and luckily it's only going to be rain down here. In the mountains it'll be snow. Yes, it can snow in the mountains in June. Or in May and June even. Shoot, I've seen it snow in the mountains in July. So mountains are totally different than down here. Colorado Springs sits at 6,000 feet, but we sit at the very base of the mountain range, because that's the foothills over there. Them big tall things with but they still got trees on top, so that makes them foothills and not mountains. But yeah, we just decided we better try to get in some sort of a ride today and make a little video, and just wow, I don't think I got much left here, so take a look at my, oh, of course I can't see a thing. Oh man, yeah, it's too dark, I can't tell. Well, I'll tell you what, from what I can tell, I've got very little battery left. I just can't read this thing. I don't know. But just go ahead and yeah, so we'll just tell you till we see you again, happy trails. I'm gonna go ahead and just keep recording till it decides to quit on me, since I can't see what's going on here. We got to cross over here. Got to cross over to the other side. We got to break on through to the other side. Thank you. It's a cool person. Bounce. As you can see, Pico is pretty stormy. But yeah, we might be able to get out Friday, possibly, but the weekend doesn't look good, and yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is we'll just call this a day, and you all have a really good rest of your weekend. Hopefully an even better upcoming weekend. From BJ and Joe, out about on the recumbents, of course. Where else would we be? We will see you next time. Bye.
And now for your viewing pleasure, bonus footage.